Okay, let's look at when we factor when the leading coefficient is 1. So I just want to remind you that leading coefficient, that word coefficient just means the number in front of the variable. And so we're going to be looking at quadratics here. So when we're factoring, we're thinking of x squared plus bx plus c. So the leading coefficient, so the number in front of x squared, which is the highest exponent here, is just 1. So this is going to be a little bit easier than when we have a number in front. So when you're doing this, what's important is to look at b and c, because what you're going to be looking for is two numbers that multiply to be c, okay, and add to be b. So you're looking for two numbers that will multiply to be this number and add to be this number. So let me show you how this works. Let's factor x squared plus 4x plus 3. And so first step, remember, is you always look to see if there's a GCF. So that's always the first thing you do when factoring. There is no GCF here, so I'm going to start with this value here, which is my C. So it always goes in order A, B, C. And I'm looking for numbers that multiply to be 3. Now what will help you is if you look at your signs first. I need two numbers that multiply to be a positive 3 and then are going to add to be a positive 3. And the only way you can multiply to be positive and add to be positive is if both your signs are positive. That's the only way you can multiply and add to be positive. So that kind of helps me because 3 is prime, so this is pretty easy. I only have one option, 1 and 3. And 1 times 3 is 3, so that's my C. And then if I add these, 1 plus 3, the sum is 4, and that's what I needed right here. So this works. Okay, so let me so when you go to factor, you're going to do your you're going to do two sets of parentheses, and you start with your first term, and this is the opposite of FOIL. So remember, you FOILed before. And I'm going to start with my first terms. They have to multiply to be x squared. So my only option is x and x. And then we already found our factors that multiply to be 3 and add to be 4. That's a positive 1 and a positive 3. So you just put those in there, plus 1 and plus 3. And that's factored. We have now factored x squared plus 4x plus 3. And the way you could check it if you wanted to is you could go ahead and FOIL those two factors and you will get x squared plus 4x plus 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the same thing with x squared plus 9x plus 20. So again, I have the same thing. It adds to be positive and multiplies to be positive. So I know both my signs have to be positive. And again, that helps me with my factors. I don't have to worry about any negatives. So I'm going to list all the factors of 20. And if you know right away what it is, that's fine. But sometimes, especially with larger numbers, it's easier to write down all your factors. So 1 times 20, 2 times 10, and then 4 times 5. All three of these multiply to be 20. Just add these up, and remember we're looking for the combination that adds to be 9, which is right here, the last one. So I'm going to go ahead and factor this, draw my two sets of parentheses. Again, start with my first term. I have x squared. Always just check that you have the variable x and not something else, because it could be a y or a w, it doesn't matter. But in our case, we have an x, and then we said the two factors that work are 4 and 5, a positive 4 and a positive 5. Okay, so if I FOILed this out, I would get x squared plus 9x plus 20. So this is factored.